got some whatnot around here somewhere, but we can go ahead. And then you was like, what? And then I don't know if I'm gonna ever stop being a cornball, but
I never want you to stop being a cornball, though. That's what I appreciate about you. There was actually a there was a TikTok I saw this morning that made me think of you because I think the dude was like, "Oh, do you got a minute?" It was like, "No, but I will have one in 2 seconds." And then and then he starts running across. It's like, "There's a minute. Go get it. Go get it." I was like, "It's some Andre shit. Oh, corny ass." But it's corny ass out of love. Like it's not like, "Oh, this nigga corny." Like shut the hell up. It's
nah,
like,
there's
wow,
some people that's like bad corny, like definitely negative. I don't think I'm negative corny. I'm just like just dad joke corny.
we're gonna have to create a natural nonsense graph of your corniness and get a whole XY axis going.
Yeah, because we had I'm trying to think like there was a couple times where we started the podcast and it was already starting off. It was already starting off on that zone. But
And
hey, here we
we
are. We're on a new episode.
we are episode 13 of Natural Nonsense Podcast.
Man, it's been a journey getting to episode 13. Can't even lie to y'all. But we here. We here.
We back. It has been a journey. I mean, our last episode was November 6th. You know how much has changed since November 6th?
A lot has changed since November 6th, actually.
Like just wow, we had national holidays. The Lakers have gone from sucking to being good to
I
being
know.
decent. Like it's a change. Like I feel like my energy has changed with the Lakers season. Like because at first the beginning it was like, ooh, like I can defend y'all, but y'all gonna have to give me a win to start defending
Hey
y'all a
man,
little bit.
I ain't send you no text. I ain't sent Kyler like I sent like maybe one Laker text the whole season so far because I was like I don't even want to speak on.
I
But,
appreciate that.
but they hooping. They started hooping like you saying. But but I think your relation to that energy definitely. I think that's where a part of that fandom comes from a little bit because it's like, hey, at least the Lakers won. You know what I'm saying?
At least the Lakers won. But welcome to episode 13 officially of the Natural Nonsense Podcast. We are your hosts, Andre 1K in the building on the ones, the twos, sometimes the threes.
Fours, fives, sometimes.
Not five, not six, not seven.
Oh man, I knew that was gonna be bad. I was a Heat fan, but I was like, no, I don't think that's gonna be bad.
And then for the first time in Natural Nonsense Podcast history, Master of Business Administration, Kyler Nathan, your host of this
We
episode.
gotta get a iCarly sound theme that does the little applause when we want it to.
We'll
But
add that
yeah,
to the list. We get the random dancing in. But yeah, since the last time I've been on the airways, I have officially completed my master's in business administration from UC San Diego. A hell of a journey. I'd be lying to y'all on this mic if I told y'all I was super excited about being done with this master's. We were just talking before I hit record about just how fast the quarter system moves and how I feel like the train it's still going and there's all right, get out here, like your degree done, get out. And it's like y'all ain't gonna slow it down a little bit, y'all ain't gonna pull the gear back in there. It's like nah, just get out. So definitely still just taking it all in, being done with the masters, but I am pushing myself in any space that I'm in to own the fact that I just finished my masters, to
yes,
say that out
sir.
loud,
Yes, sir.
because it is a big deal, even if it doesn't really feel like a big deal right now, but it is a big deal. So y'all are to refer to me as Master Nathan from here on out. I'm gonna have a t-shirt.
I don't know. I don't know about master. We have a history that connected, but
I mean, I guess if you want to bring it back there.
nah. But we definitely gonna put respect on that name though, because you did that. But I'm super proud of you, dude. Like it's amazing and like definitely like in the present sense you getting that inertia to settle, but like just on a grand scheme, like this is an important pillar and moment for you. So super proud of you, dog.
Appreciate that. Another thing that happened over the last couple weeks, Spotify came out with their Wrapped, it took me a while to figure out how to even look at the Wrapped for the podcast. But once I did, I was pleasantly surprised. Overall, we recorded over 640 minutes of content this year across
Whoa.
13 episodes. Wild, right? Like that's a lot. That is a lot of time. Just
That's several movies that y'all, watched with us, basically. Like that, that's saying something, that's saying something for the folks that's listening and tuning in. Like that's a lot of minutes.
it is a lot of minutes. And then what really warmed my heart, we are the top podcast for 12 fans. 12 might not seem like a big number to everyone listening to this, but for me, that's huge. 12 people.
For me,
We are
that's
the number one
gigantic.
podcast. Yeah, we are the number one podcast that 12 people listen to.
Cause it's like when you think about it, like me and you just was like, yeah, we gonna talk on this podcast, right? But like if we had like an audience of 12 people that we would visually see, it would be kind of wild. You know what I'm saying? Like it would be wild to see them every week, basically, and we doing the podcast and they like, and that's how I kind of look at it. And I think that's something that I've been giving thought to of how to put like some perspective to the numeric way that we talk about numbers now, just like followers and fans and whatever likes and shit. Like, man, it's wild. Like, if 12 people is really that's a church almost, basically, in some places.
Hey, Jesus had 12 disciples.
Yeah, dang. There's a lot of parallels right now. But either way, man, I don't know, it's a real big deal. And I feel like it sets a foundation for, you know, what's to come.
Yeah, and then last stat real quick. Top top podcast for 12 fans. Top 5 podcasts for 28 people. So there's an additional 16 people that we
Oh,
at least in a
wow.
top 5. So that's huge. And
Dang,
I
that
just really appreciate everybody for tapping in like that.
Yeah, man, for real, for real. That would be like 30 people and every now and then that's a lot of people, man.
Just
That's
to
a
hear
lot of people.
us.
Yeah. I mean like we cool, but dang, 30 people for a whole, 600 something minutes. I'll take it, man. That's solid. That's a
Yeah, and hope
victory.
definitely a dub. Hopefully, those numbers continue to rise as we move forward with the podcast. One person who I know we're a top podcast for, he sent us a couple more voice memos. I wanted to rock through them both, bringing back the hyphy doc. And just in case y'all haven't tapped into the Banquet Hall podcast, I actually brought the hyphy doc onto the Banquet Hall. We had a really good conversation about him and his pursuit of medical school and his Black and Filipino identity. So if y'all only have been listening to that nonsense and want to get to know the hyphy doc a little bit more, a shameless plug to tune into the Banquet Hall as well, just so y'all can get to know the man behind the sounds. But we are going to tap in to a couple of his voice memos real quick. Let's start with this one, as long as the computer is sharing sound.
Yo, it's me. First off, I'm gonna need Kyler to give us a adequate demonstration on the bee waggle dance, because I think it'll contribute very much to society if you did that. So show us that bee waggle, bro. Um, aside from that, I really loved your convo on how we leverage distributive cognition, because it made me think about like when I first thought about like why do I say bless you when people sneeze, because I was feeling like a lot of anxiety and like sense of like responsibility, whenever some random person in class or work sneeze, and I'm like, damn, are they gonna think I'm rude? And after I like really investigated that, I decided it doesn't do anything for me, it doesn't do anything for them, so I'm gonna just not say it. And in the future, if people want to ask me about it, like, I'm more than happy to share my opinion and my perspective on that without really trying to convince them, which I think people ought to do, like, but just hear other people's perspectives.
I still think you should be blessing people, Cam. Like, damn, that's rude. No, I'm
Nah, but I feel like that's a good point because um one of those things was in college, like if I was walking with a group of black people and then like a white person didn't say excuse me, I purposely didn't move. and I made it awkward.
Yeah, brick wall
because
time.
because you're not about to just act like we're not walking in a group and you just about to just walk like, bro, we're like, there's not enough space. You're forcing, and there's these big walkways too. Because let's not act like we're walking on stilts. Huge walkways, and you, and that's the stuff that I'll be like, nah, we not about to just let people walk through. And at first, I feel what Cam's saying because it's like the bless you thing. Like,
Yeah.
oh, you just, when I started to think about it, I'm like, man, I'm not doing right. It's 20, well, it's 2014. It's 20, bro, I'm not doing this no more.
Yeah, and vividly remember like when I would see like people I'd be walking with moving out the way. I'm like, oh nah, come back. Like we are not moving out of their way. We will stand here, and I will take a charge on Library Walk before I move out of people way.
I'll turn into Kyle Lowry quick. You kidding me?
I'll turn to Pat Beverly in a second if people don't get out the way.
Like, are you just to say, hey, excuse me? I acknowledge that there are human beings ahead of me that I'm
Yeah.
obviously trying to split through. I I would go around, but because you want to go this way, excuse me, humans. I want to get by. But then on the other end, not saying bless you is seen as rude. It's weird. Maybe for another another day, but
Yeah, maybe for another day. I will say though, like if I do sneeze and I'm in a room full of white people and nobody say bless you, I take that really personally. I'm like, so
I get where you
y'all just
coming
ain't
from.
gonna bless me.
I get where you coming from. I say bless you. I think
Yeah.
where I'm from. I don't know. I just grew up like different a little bit, where it's just more of a like. I think it's more of automatic than anything.
Yeah, it's natural.
Yeah,
It's natural nonsense.
yeah,
Um, as
for
far
real.
as the bee waggle dance, I looked up the video just to see if I could really like try to hit y'all with a little waggle.
Oh, you just hit it. You just hit it. Do
But
that.
see,
That's the dance. That's the
that's kind of the dance. It's kind of a little like this, but it's a lot more. The other half of the bee movement, it's the stinger side moving quite a bit, and we gonna have to start a Patreon OnlyFans for natural nonsense. So I'm really about to hit the waggle dance song.
Nah, for real,
But
bro.
it's a little shoulder action. Like, I gotta tap in with the beast to get a formal tutorial. But video listeners, y'all get the little shoulder shake, little Harlem shake for the waggle dance. Audio listeners, y'all just going to tap into YouTube real quick, hit that subscribe button, and y'all can see me hit the waggle dance. But let's get into this second voice memo real quick so we can get into the episode at hand.
Okay, number one, obviously I'm choosing zombies over spiders, ignoring my extensive professional experience in zombie movies. If Harry Potter couldn't mess with no spiders and he got whole ass magic to work with, ain't nobody messing with no spiders, okay? Number two, I love the convo on masks and just emotional vulnerability and trying to process all that. Shameless plug, everyone needs a therapist. Everyone could benefit from a therapist. And the tools that you can get, I say therapy is kind of like dating. It takes, it can take a minute. It can be expensive. It can be traumatic. There's a lot of history involved. There's a lot of barriers to access, whatnot. But once you find a good therapist and you have someone dedicated to only listening to you, providing space to you, and teaching you kind of how to process your own emotions, once you can put your emotions into words, man, your perspective on life is opened.
Man, that was a big sandwich of a voice memo right there. Because
That was
I was thinking, I was like, okay, zombies, and then we went right to like,
right.
I was like, whoa, but yeah, another great voice memo from Hypey Doc. I think the part about Harry Potter was so key. Like, bruh literally got a wand, a
Mm-hmm.
broomstick, all everything. Spiders still tearing them up. Trees is tearing them up in Harry Potter. So, um, And I think just the spider thing, just with all of their reflexes and stuff, it's just not close. But yeah, that part about therapy at the end is really key. Like I was just able to get my appointment, next week. So it's real good to like really take that step back. And like he said, like when you're able to speak to your emotions, I think um it definitely changes the perspective for sure.
No, that's absolutely true. I think that um, the more that we provide space for ourselves to take up space and like really have an avenue to just process what's going on, like I think that, of course, you can just think about what's going on, you can write about it, but just having a facilitated space where it's just you and your therapist, your caretaker, they're guiding you through these topics. They're helping you process what you need to process. No one's judging you for what you're saying. Like, this is just your opportunity to have your mic and yeah, just get whatever you need to get off of your chest. I think that everyone deserves to at least try out therapy. I think that there's plenty of resources out there to figure out how to make therapy work for you, how to make it work financially, what types of insurances people take. So highly encourage y'all to tap in with folks who have taken therapy to get their feedback on what that process has been like for them or where they found their therapist at. Just check it out, because I think there's been such a stigma for so long about like going to therapy and seeking care for mental health. And as someone who studied the brain in college, I think that we owe our brain a bit of self-care. We need to take care of our brains.
Sure, for sure. It's the it's the thing running the show.
It is a thing running the show. But once again, I want to thank the Hyphy Doc, as always, for tapping in with the voice memos. I love hearing from Cam. I would also love to hear from some of the other folks in our top 12. So we're treating this like MySpace in a second. Cam about to have the #1 friend spot on our MySpace for natural nonsense. But not just if y'all have takes that y'all want to have us discuss or just want to give your 2 cents. Voice memos can be 10 seconds. It could be a minute. But just head over to the link in our bio at Nat Nonsense Pod and leave us a voicemail. We want to hear some more voices on the pod. But I'm gonna pass it over to 1K so we could talk about our intro question real quick.
Yeah, so I was just, chilling one day and I was just like, man, like all of these natural disaster movies, man, they don't really get ranked as they should. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm like sometimes, people put this movie or that movie, and I just think we both could come up with like a solid top three. And so we can do it like a draft. You know what I'm saying? I don't got the little music. That's why we got to get that button thing because we could put it like, dun, 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 like for the NFL draft. That'd be fun. But my first pick for sure would be um, I think it's called The Day After Tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like it gave a more, I don't know what to call it. Like all the stuff that was happening The Day After Tomorrow, I feel like it realistically has some type of like angle to it, even if it is extra exaggerated. But like I like the way that they showed the actual impacts of the weather over time and stuff. And I like I think like if we looking at the chances of people to actually make it out, because I think that's when we're looking like I think Day After Tomorrow, um, that's a wild movie, and I think it actually had a good plot. Like I think some of the other ones, the plot is kind of forgotten about behind all the stuff they create. But Day After Tomorrow, that would be my first pick.
Excellent first pick. Excellent first pick, I should say. I did have Day After Tomorrow on my draft board, but seeing as though I didn't have the #1 overall pick in this draft, I have to go a different direction with my next pick. So for my first pick in the disaster movie draft, and I feel like with all of my draft board, I'm kind of stretching the rules or the genre of disaster movie a little bit, because I mean disaster can mean a number of different things. My first pick, I'm going with I Am Legend.
Oh,
I think that's just, I mean, zombie apocalypse is disastrous to me.
yes.
I don't know if it's disastrous to anybody else, but I just think about I Am Legend and just Will Smith, like just really day in, day out going to the video store, trying to like chop it up with mannequins. It's just him and his dog, and it's these zombies just taking over the entire city. He's trying to find just any other human out there. I think especially post COVID or post beginning of the COVID-19 pandemic, I think movies like this really they get another layer to it because you see just how disastrous it can be when you're separated from people and just like, yeah, what life was like for him and just keeping his sanity throughout that movie. So number one pick for me, I'm going I Am Legend.
That's a great pick. I'm not gonna lie to you. I haven't watched it since COVID broke out, so I might if I revisit it, it might hit different. But no, that's a great pick because that is a disaster. Like you in Blockbuster, bro. That's a disaster.
That is a disaster.
I think the next pick for me, if I'm gonna pick, I would definitely go with 2012.
Damn it.
I feel like 2012 encapsulated a lot of that time. Like it only mattered in 2012 to go see 2012. Now that 2012's passed, but to some, I don't know. There could be listeners that are 9 years old that were born in 2012, right? 9,
Yeah.
10 years old.
10 years old. It's the end of 2022.
Yeah. Wait, yeah. So if you're looking at like them kids wouldn't have known nothing about 2012, but growing like that was a peak time in high school where, bro, people legit was really like the world's gonna end, and we had all these different signs because of these weather systems, and it got to the end of the year. I was kind of like, hey, how would I know? Like, and I think it was a precarious, almost like 2 weeks where people were just like, well, dang, we here now. What's gonna happen? And I think that movie, especially because I think it came out towards the end of the year, right? Or am I tripping?
I think so.
Like when you see all of that stuff that ended up happening, I think the plot in that movie was good too. I don't think it was good as Day After Tomorrow, but it was a real good showing of a lot of different issues like capitalism and like how did that come into it? Because I think that was the main plot line. Like, bro, you need to be oil baron in order to get on this arc, and then on the arc, it's just all of these people that's the best of society that we want. Like, are any of y'all plumbers? Like, like so what? You had $10 billion. Are any of y'all an electrician? Like, what use are all of y'all? Not like that, but that's how my brain went. But it just shows
that's real.
Yeah, it just shows me like where how that plot line was really kind of good in there. That would be my second pick.
For sure was going to be my second pick. I thought about taking it first because I didn't think you were going to take I Am Legend. So got to switch up my draft strategy next time we have the big drafts. But I am going to hit you with a very interesting fact. 2012 came out November 13th, 2009.
Wait, word?
Yeah, just like in the United States, it was released November 13th, 2009. Things that make you go,
maybe so maybe this was like fuel for that or something. I don't know why I thought it came out the same year.
It didn't come out the same year, but I can say that, like, I think that the 2012 conspiracies, they predate 2009 for sure.
Yeah.
But I think just thinking about that moment in time where this is like the onset of Twitter. So really back then, this is back when you changing people's tweets on Twitter, quote tweeting it like, oh, he said what? Like, I didn't say that. They made that up. But I think that this was one of those where it's just like spread like wildfire. I mean, this is freshman year of high school. It's like, oh, the world ended in 3 years? Like, dang, that's wild. And now just thinking back, like, because I think the date was like December 21st, 2012. We wasn't even in college yet. We didn't graduate high school yet. You know how much
I wasn't even 18 yet.
Just wild. What a wild time, because I'm not going to say that I didn't think that the world was... I had my suspicions about 2012, but I think leading up to that December 2012, I was like, well, hell, what if?
And if so, what should I be doing right now?
Yeah, like, I'm 16. I feel like I'm an adult. I got adult decisions to make at 16. Like,
right.
Good old 2012. My number 2 pick, though. Which one of these do I want to do? I got my draft board right in front of me. I was talking to our president of draft operations, and I think the movie that we're selecting with our number 2 pick is going to be Titanic. I think when you think of
Ooh.
disasters, I think Titanic is like one of the pinnacles of a disaster movie that I don't know if a lot of people think of it as a disaster movie per se, but for damn sure is a disaster when you just think about what happened, and especially in retrospect, or I guess looking back on it with an adult mind, and the politics at play on the Titanic, who's where on the Titanic. It was just a disaster of all sorts. Um, Great movie too. Like, it's a pinnacle of cinema, but when we're talking about disaster movies, I think it starts with Titanic because it's this big spectacle, this big ship sinking, and just the artistic way that it was all put on the screen from start to finish. Like, I feel like Titanic's really like 2 movies in. For those of y'all who a little ancient like us and had the VHS copies with the couple different videotapes in it, like, it's really a couple movies within it, because you got the whole first part of the movie, then the whole second half, the boat's just sinking and it's just chaos. So yeah, number 2 pick for me going Titanic.
That's a great pick, honestly. Like, I think the bewilderment of people to be on a ship that was supposed to be unsinkable and trying to get through the processing that nothing is unsinkable basically. But they probably that would have saved more people. Oh, the ship's unsinkable. They're making this up. Like, sounds like a lot of what they be saying about the climate change and about this stuff. But hey,
Sounds like a lot of hoopla to me.
sounds like a lot of hoopla.
Hoopla.
So I want to do an honorable mention.
Okay.
My honorable mention is gonna be um my honorable mention is gonna be Deep Blue Sea, just because, like, okay, the reason why it's hard for me to put it and get it in the draft right here is just because y'all all chose to be there. I'm not giving you credit for just being in there. Like, if y'all just ended up in some way in this situation, it's different. But y'all are at a shark facility. Yeah, I don't think I'd be working there. I'm just saying that. But if you want to talk about a disaster happening, equipment failing in a shark center, that is a
It's
big
not
disaster.
looking good.
That is a gigantic disaster. So I think on disaster scale, disaster definitely happened there. But for my third pick, I gotta go with Independence Day, man. Independence Day. Wow. You want to talk about stakes?
Yeah.
The stakes were high. It wasn't about the Beano planet. They was because all these other disaster movies kind of like especially Day After Tomorrow, like, I mean, for the most part humans would be most affected, but like, I mean, if they reshape these boundaries and now, I know that's in 2012, but like if they reshape the boundaries in 2012 and like certain places became, I feel like the animals would be fine. I mean, I always think animals would be fine, honestly, because they do this on a daily basis.
Yeah.
But man, Independence Day, that's elite right there. That's disaster movie 101.
That is disaster movie 101 for sure. Once again, that was going to be on my draft board, but I figured you were going to take Independence Day, so I had a backup option ready, a couple backup options actually, and so I'll start with my honorable mention. I didn't draft this movie because I had a zombie movie already on my list, but honorable mention is World War Z.
Oh, those aren't Walking Dead zombies.
Those is not Walking Dead zombies. I just remember seeing World War Z and just seeing them zombies running all over the place, climbing up walls, and I'm like, oh nah, like I'm not Brad Pitt. I can't do this.
And in World War Z, it's like, am I like? That's where you start to question, like, is this the world I want to live in?
Right. The hell
Like,
I'm about to do.
this is World War Z now. World War Z, like we got human zombies climbing on top of each other, trying to like, bro. At a certain point,
I'm
I
cool.
know, I'm gonna be cool. Like I'm gonna just be cool off of it, and it's not even like no, oh, I don't value life or something. It's just because I value. But man,
Absolutely. But the one that I'm going with, kind of another one that I feel gets heightened a bit for me because of the pandemic that we find ourselves in, and that movie is Bird Box. I
oh
think that
man,
that Bird Box movie, it was a Netflix phenomenon. Um, I remember when I first watched it, I was like, oh, this is wild. Like you just can't see. Like you're not supposed to just open your blindfold. There's temptations everywhere trying to get you to uncover your eyes. Yeah, that movie is terrifying. Just it's like who knows what's actually happening around here. Yeah, I'm going with Bird Box for my final disaster movie, which once again is kind of more of a horror-ish, but it's disastrous to me. So I'm going Bird
uh,
Box.
all of these are horror movies. They just be adding in little quips to make it action and adventure, but
Yeah,
they be really
exactly.
glossing over that this is a horror movie. Like all these alien invasions, they're like, oh, it's an action adventure movie. Like, no, this is, bro, a horror movie, bro. You see what happened here? But Bird Box is really good. There's another one I think it's called like Hush or Silence or
Mm-hmm. There's
something,
Hush. Yeah.
or it was something where they had to be quiet because these like, I don't know, these weird
And
bats.
there's a Quiet Place too. Also,
Oh yeah,
there's
even
a
at the
lot that we could go
senses.
here.
Yeah, but
But those are our picks. If y'all have picks for disaster movies that we should have mentioned, once again, leave us a voice memo, hit us up in the comments. I'll probably put a post up with our list and y'all can see what team y'all think is taking the disaster movie championship. But let's go ahead and get into the episode. You want to start us off, 1K?
yeah, man. So the this is one of the topics I think Lisa had brought up, but
Mm-hmm.
basically like how did we go about like domesticating of big ass animals, right? And I was like, man, I could talk about this for just forever. But I think it just kind of goes about in a couple of stages, like the origins, and then kind of I guess breeding. I guess the best way to talk about it, breeding or just like generations, new generations, and then capitalism at the end. So I think that's kind of like the different shapes of it, of how it looks different in different places.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so origins is kind of just like, okay, if we look at um a lot of the things that ended up being domesticated, it was all because of a purpose. It was all because of a use or something like that. But depending on the environment where those humans were at. And so that's why like in some of the like more desert places where there's camels, people domesticated the camels. They were able to like, train them and do different things like that. And then in places where they were horses that were wild, then they were able to tame them and do that. But it really starts from having generations and generations and generations in time to eventually get to a selection process where you're selecting the um the animals that most likely have the traits that you want. And so when we look at dogs, this is a probably the most extreme example of this because they came from wolves and then became like, I don't know, like there's just a grand variety of something that can just be called a dog versus a lot of other animals. But I think that just goes towards what humans decided to do to get certain traits. And so the same thing happened with big ass animals. So for cows and stuff, and like beef cows. So there were some cows, that were just kind of loose and out, like oxen type animals.
Mm-hmm.
That's different types of animals like that that are all over the world. But some of them were first used as machines kind of like to plow fields and do stuff like that. So they wouldn't necessarily care so much about how that cow tasted because it was more about how strong it was and what it needed. And so a lot of it required people to get it used to being handled because that's the main domesticated part. Like if you can get an animal to listen to you and um, also not try to necessarily like go out of its bounds, then it's basically domesticated. But that's why cats are partially domesticated. Like cats are gonna do whatever they want to do. Like at the end
Sure
of the
is.
day, like you can't do the same like because cats just aren't domesticated. Like so, there's certain things that you can do and have cats as a pet, but that's not the same thing as like a dog, where like you can really train a dog to do exactly what you want it to do. And so then when you go to stuff like horses, it always took talented people to get the horse used to having someone on its back. So when it's doing all that bucking and it's doing all that like, jumping in the air and stuff like that your people be seeing at the like those different what are they called? Like
Talking about like the
bull
rodeos or something.
yeah, the rodeos. So rodeos ended up kind of starting from that. So all those events that they do and stuff are different things that they would have to do in order to um kind of basically domesticate the animal. So when they're roping the cattle or roping the little cow that's running by, it's because they have to separate it from its parents to wean it off of the milk. Usually that's what that's for. And then when they're riding and trying to get the bulls to, like they do the same thing. Like they had the cowboys on the bulls or the horses to try to get them used to a person like being
Mm-hmm.
near. Because if not, they will kill everybody. Like a horse could, like a wild horse that is really not like, bro, they could really hurt people for real.
Easily.
Like people is really sleep on the dangers of a horse. Like especially a horse that isn't like comfortable with a person and is kind of
Yeah.
scared, a lot of damage. And so then when you go into looking at like things like pigs, you know what I'm saying? It's a similar thing because they're coming from boars, like the
Mm-hmm.
wild boars that end up going out. And then the thing that's interesting with pigs is that pigs can basically revert back because like if they get loose and then they're out in the wild, because pigs are really good at surviving. Like it's not a lot of things that can really attack it, and they're really smart. And so as long as they got food, they'll make it. And so
Yeah.
over generations, that's how they have such a wild hog problem like across the South, because over time when pigs would get loose and they can repopulate really fast too. So then, they mix in with the boars and the wild boars and stuff, and then now you just got a whole like situation on your hands. So you can go from domesticated back to undomesticated depending on what happens. And I think that kind of happens with cats more often too. Like if a cat is like a alley cat or it's like a stray cat, it's more likely to be like a whole different type of like relationship with people. It's like more feral and stuff. And so um I think just when it comes to the like the domestication of big ass animals, like and what it means today, like I think the the main thing is just like how have these animals been translated into like this capitalist system we're in,
Mm-hmm.
because before like people did have like every animal that's on a farm usually has a function. So
Yeah.
the cow, um, it has like, milk and stuff like that. And sometimes the milk is used to like some kind of way feed the pigs. And then the pigs are used to like kind of almost like a recycling center.
Mm-hmm.
And even the pig can be used to clear land. You know what I'm saying? If you're trying to clear some land, and it's cheaper to really get a couple pigs than it is to get a whole mechanized machine you got to rent, honestly. And then there's a return on it because at the end of the season you can do what you want to do with it. And then chickens. They also help like with pest control. Um, like so everything kind of makes a forms of ecosystem. So that's kind of where the domestication came from, is to bring that ecosystem to your specific land as opposed to having to move from it. And that's where we're gonna get to next in the geography of our palette. But what do you think about that so far, just from the domestication of big ass animals?
Yeah, I think a couple of things come to mind. First things first, it's just, I think a lot of this always comes back to just how people grow up, because even just hearing you talk about like a problem with like wild hogs running around, I'm like, dang, like living outside the city, you see different animals. Because I feel like growing up, you have your dogs, you got your cats, there'd be some birds outside. You might see some of the dudes from Compton riding their horse around, but I'm not seeing no wild hog outside of the zoo, outside the rodeo. And so just thinking about how like geographically, like as these cities develop and as people move like across nations, like what types of animals that you see, I think that's what came to mind first. um but it's just interesting. I mean, Cam brought up distributed cognition in the voice memo. We've talked about like symbiotic relationships in the past on this podcast. I think that all of those are things that also come up when what you're talking about with the domestication of big ass animals. Just because when you have a farm and you have your cattle, you have the pigs, you have the horses, they're all contributing to the ecosystem. Like you said, they all have their functionality, and a lot of them play really key parts to making sure that the process is able to be sustained. And I think that you brought up capitalism, and I think that when you look at back in the day, of course, neither of us were there, but you know, I envision like farmer, he got his cow, he milking the cow, bringing the milk to home to the family. Now you got these big ass like assembly lines. It's like, oh no, we got a billion. I mean, obviously not a billion cows, but it's a billion cows here. We're producing milk to all these billions of restaurants, and we need it today. We need it expeditiously. When I feel like my first views of farms is just like, yeah, like I got this bottle of milk, gonna bring it to the family. We're gonna have some fresh eggs at the table. We got a different process nowadays with capitalism.
Yeah, and what you're talking about is so real because, you know, my dream one day is to definitely at least have a homestead, but homesteading is completely different than how you'd have to have like a farm today. Like today, you gotta have several hundred acres to be calling it, like to be really making any bread, because
Yeah.
a lot of why the egg prices went up is because the supermarkets don't want to pay the price difference, and so a lot of farmers just can't produce the eggs at the cost that they trying to buy it at, and so all of that inflation stuff is really impacting all the way down to just regular farmers and regular
Yeah.
people. That's like, bro, I got 100 chickens. Like that's a lot of chickens, right? But
Look at all those
Tyson,
chickens.
but Tyson Inc. got 20,000 chickens. They can afford to lose 100.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And so when things happen like that, you know, it definitely can really show like, like we the more we have to get, we gotta reel it in a little bit. And then those big old carburetor, I said that wrong, but there's those big, huge, giant ones that are in the cornfields that collect the corn.
Mm-hmm.
Like that just doesn't seem that just seems dystopian to me. Like, why would we ever need this much corn? But
Hey.
that's a whole nother podcast about corn. We could do a whole one just about the about corn and how corn has basically taken over.
That would be a corny ass podcast.
Yeah, it would. It would definitely would. But
I have a quick thing I want to. This is not actually a question at all. I'm being purely ignorant saying this, but do you ever think that like the non-domesticated animals, they be looking at the domesticated animals like, somebody come and look at this. Look at this horse carrying this man over here.
they definitely do. That was in some movie, I think. Like there was some movie where they had touched on that. It might have been like Open Season or something. Or, I
Mm,
don't know, something like that.
man,
But
open season, that's a classic.
That's a real classic right there. Nah, but I think I definitely think that if I was to guess, it would be the ones that aren't domesticated. Cause the I watched this farmer dude, Wilshaw Farm, whatever, and he raises geese and ducks, and sometimes wild geese and ducks come to the farm. And I think they just, I don't know, like they just be like, dang, y'all just staying here because they migrating. You know what I'm saying? They like, dang, so y'all just chilling, y'all just parlaying up in here. But the other ducks and geese be kind of pressing them, like, get out of here. You ain't gonna mess this up for us. They
So
just
they
be
become
trying to stop by real quick. They like, nah, get out of here.
like, hey, you know I can't have visitors at work. And then they'd be like, you know it's winter. We supposed to be flying. Like, nah, bro, get up out of here, man.
You ain't gonna mess up this good thing we got going. But also the reason the geese don't live is because basically the dude feeds them so much, but not like too much. But
Yeah,
they they're so well fed that they can't really fly no more.
be full as hell.
Full as hell, too much weight for the wings, so they just staying down there like we staying where it's good.
Yeah, like, hey, we got it kind of good down here, man. I don't know if I want to leave. They got this new Wonder Bread I'm trying to rock with.
Man, but when you look at farming too, I mean, there's a lot of parallels, but just you start to see just how deep, dang, like this is a true process right here. But it makes an ecosystem eventually. Like I think that's why I went off Homestead is because it improves the environment with an active direction. Because a lot of other stuff is like vote for this guy to improve the environment, or donate some money to improve the environment. But you know, planting some trees really goes a long way to actually doing something, like planting an orchard or making some ponds or something. But that kind of gets into the geography of our palette because I think for a long time, people were a lot more nomadic, like nomadic meaning like for certain parts of the year you kind of are living somewhere and then you travel and go to a different area for various reasons. So for some people that might be for water, and some people that might be for hunting grounds, and some people that might be for certain plants that grow in a certain area that they collect. And so once they started domesticating big ass animals, they shortened that distance and time that it would take to actually travel and do all of that different thing. Because when you're traveling, it's a lot more dangerous just because hey, people could pull up on you and you know that could happen. Wild animals could happen, all type
Mm-hmm.
of things can happen. And so a lot of things were nomadic to table, where now we're farm to table. And so I think, like you were saying, you know, there comes a point where, there's the farmer and then there's the cow, they're milking the cow. And so this used to be a sustainable way to actually have like a way of life. Um, Not necessarily that they was rich or nothing, but they definitely like could work hard and see the fruits of their labor. So they didn't need to have this like super gigantic farm to, in order to turn a profit. But once capitalism got into the mix and now the domestication of the animals is on a giant scale, it's like maybe we do have the extra food to fund the war. Maybe we do got the extra food to, sell to these people to get money to get some more guns or something. So then the people that were more nomadic in nature, they were left more vulnerable to more
Mm-hmm.
mechanized systems of like production. And even more in feudalism more than capitalism because it kind of came before, but just the idea of like having it be a mechanized process, you know what I'm saying? And so I think now we're at the breaking point of the mechanized processes. Like they have farmers that have tractors now that have computers in them, and if something goes wrong with the computer in the tractor, the farmer just can't turn the tractor on, can't fix it, can't take the part out, can't do nothing, and then has to be responsible to take their tractor to the nearest John Deere dealership to get them to try to fix it. But that's incredibly impractical if you are, first off, hundreds of miles away from other people, let alone the John Deere factory thing. And so some of the farmers is having to like basically get like pirated codes to break into their own tractors to fix them. And that's when you get into the level of like, what are we doing?
Yeah.
Like, it's so much about the money that this dude can't even harvest the crops that they supposed to be using the tractor for. Like, and it could be something small, but they can't fix it. And back in it, like they would just use a regular tractor, got some gears a little bit, it cranked up, but it's gonna collect the harvest. So
Yeah,
it's like,
I would say might spray some WD-40 on there at some point, but you just
yeah,
rocking.
you rocking. You need some tires, you can get some tires. If it need oil, you can put some oil. If something break, you can take it apart and put it back together. And I think that's now where we're at this level to where we're starting to, especially as they like, make more things electric and like, I think that's good, but I think we're in this transitionary period where we're using like dirty fuels, but things don't have like a dirty solution. They have a clean solution to a dirty fuel situation. And so all of these different like tractors and machines and stuff is getting so big and unable to, keep up with the geography. But I think the thing that people got to look at is like, okay, when we look at the nomadic thing, they also went to the things that were seasonal. And so we're so detached from that process that like people just expect to have bananas all the time. When, bro, if you live in Nebraska or you live in Boston, where are the bananas that grow here, right? But they try to make it a part of your natural diet. Like, oh, you're supposed to eat bananas. Everyone is supposed to eat bananas. And it's like, shouldn't they just grow in certain areas?
Yeah. That's one of those things that I honestly like never really thought of until I met you. Like I could give you credit for a lot of my like seasonal food related knowledge because yeah, why y'all out of bananas? I don't care if it's January, March, August. I want my fruit like because the whole thing like, oh, what's in season? I'm like, I don't even know what seasons are. We don't have seasons. Just run me my avocado and we good. Because even like I was in DC this past weekend, and when I was landing, I was looking, I was like, oh dang, I forgot like trees is different colors. I see these red ass trees. I'm like, oh yeah, I forgot like winter. Y'all do that out here. But I think just like it comes back to me to this myopic perspective, like this very nearsighted individualistic perspective where growing up on the West Coast, growing up in Southern California, whatever happens on the farm, like that might as well happen in some magic box. All the stuff happens, and then there's fruit at Vaughn's when I get there. Never really had to think about like what's in season. Didn't have to think about like how is this getting to me? What types of things have been used? Because it's mass production, it's capitalism. And I mean, that's speaking to growing up like 10 to 15 years ago. Like nowadays, I feel like there's a lot more access to the knowledge of what's happening, but still it's just everything so mass produced. You could literally go while we're recording this podcast, I can order a banana on Amazon and it be here within 2 hours. And it's just like those types of things, like yeah, it's just interesting to think about. And then like because you had mentioned like growing like if you live in Nebraska, live in Boston, the other thing that this conversation makes me think about is like food deserts and like how people have to travel like really far just to get food depending on where they live. Like I feel like one of the most important privileges that I recognized in college, and it was actually a sociology class I took when I first heard of food deserts. But it's like, yeah, some places they ain't got no grocery store within an hour. Whereas literally looking where I grew up at, there's at least 15 grocery stores I could probably walk to within a solid hour. And it's just wild to think about.
Yeah, bro. Like, cause growing up, like out in the like, cause there's the city limits of Shelby, but like the outer parts of Cleveland County, like it might take you 30 minutes of car driving to get to the store, like get to a bigger grocery store. So they had like smaller little like, you know, it's a little store here. They got little this, little that, and this is the store that sells tools, and then this the store that's like that's why they had all of those different things. But once Walmart came, all of that kind of just went
Mm-hmm.
out the window because they forced all of those businesses to close and then raised all the prices once all the businesses closed. And that's their model. Like they come in and ruin your local small town. Um, but yeah, man, like I think that that part that you're talking about, just like having that access and that privilege, I think is really key because again, like to have all of the mechanized, like, you know, big farm things, there has to be a down draw to that, to actual people. And I always go back to like indigenous folks and Native American folks, where this is all of this land that all these mega farms is using was land that had buffalo. You know what I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying? And then like there used to be so many buffalo going through America, and because they wanted trains to go through and they needed the buffalo to move, they just put a bounty on buffalo and ruined the way of life for millions of people. So I think like it's important as we move forward just to look at back at like what are those things that we can do. And I think one of those things we can do is get a more localized approach to our palates, and that's something I'm trying to focus on going forward. It ain't like I'm just like again, I ain't saying coming from no place of judgment or like I'm doing this so you should too. Like don't put me into that type of like that scares me, that I could know something is a proper way and then people look at me, well dang, well you not doing it. It's like dang, I just know that. I'm not saying don't judge me. I'm still messing up. But that's something I want to look more to, is like try to get to more farmers markets and try to talk to actual more farms. And I did that at Earth Day. I have met a couple local farms that do like, you know, delivery boxes and stuff. And so just trying to get my food to be closer, because I think that's where a lot of the pesticides and a lot of the like, you know, stuff that be in the food that we like, even if it is a healthy food, it's all these things that are unhealthy that had to be added to make it, you know, last long enough to get to me. So what would it look like to have a diet that's completely based off of the just 100-mile radius of where I live? And I could eat very well doing that. So
Yeah.
just how do I go about that? Do I go to more butcher shops? Do I go to more, you know, seafood places and like specific places like that and really invest my time into my food in that way, since I do eat every day? You know what I'm saying? Because that's kind of what I'm looking at going forward, is just how to localize it more so than like, because even if you eating, you know, whatever your diet is, if it's vegan, but you shipping in the vegan food from almond farm in Venezuela, or like kind of similar concept, like it's still gonna
Yeah.
be impacting a lot of different things. And it's not to say that we shouldn't import food, but it's just to say like the level and scale that it's at isn't sustainable for what we got going on for this world. And we could live a lot more abundantly too. Like I be growing a lot of vegetables and stuff, and like you'll be amazed what a dollar pack of seeds can do. Maybe you dollar pack of seeds, and then you can grow like hundreds of, you can grow infinitely from there just with that dollar,
Yeah.
versus like I'm paying $1 for one cucumber, and then it just sounds different. It just doesn't land the same. It's like even that sounds expensive, but then they charging, you know, $2-3 for the cucumber now.
Yeah. I'm about to say you ain't getting no cucumber for $1.
Exactly.
But I think what I kind of want to be a take home for this episode is just the importance of finding out the answer to questions that you have. Like, I think that nowadays it's really easy to talk about like mechanizations and like just capitalism, how capitalism drives the food industry and farming. And I think that there are a good number of people who, in theory, they want to have a more sustainable diet. They want to change the way they eat. They want to know more about where their food is coming from. And I think that this podcast can really help shed light on the ways that you could do that. Like you talked about going to farmers markets, you talk about going to butcher shops. But really what I'm hearing, what I've heard you say a lot, and what I think it comes down to is have conversations with people. Like realistically, like people are experts in the things that they do when they really get down to it. Like we started the conversation talking about disaster movies and how I think it was in reference to 2012, like how many of the people as plumbers, like how many people as electricians, like these are people who study this craft and they have knowledge. Even with the computerization of the farmers' tractors and whatnot, they still got to know what they doing with this tractor. They still have to know how to tend to their crops. And I think that when you go to a farmer's market, and it's not just, oh, how much is this? All right, cool. But like really engaging with people on conversations and getting to know the knowledge that they have. And you never know just how many more gears that can click in your head when it's like, okay, maybe I don't know exactly where this tomato came from. But when I had this conversation with the person I bought this box from, they gave me the story about how they started their farm. They gave me the story about how important these different things are to them. And I think that's how we really take control of our lives back from capitalism. It's just that awareness of what is your money going towards? What decisions are you opting into? Like you're opting into spending money on this cucumber versus spending money on the seeds. And neither one of those is the quote unquote right thing that you're supposed to be doing. Like for some people, they need the convenience of just being able to go to the store and grabbing a cucumber. Maybe they don't have access to a place to grow cucumbers.
Yeah, and there's some things that aren't worth growing.
Yeah.
Like unless you're growing like a field of it, it really ain't worth. Like for example, I can't see myself growing green onion. It costs like maybe $1.50, and then I can regrow it. All I gotta do is put in some water, and then it'll regrow it. So it to spend all the time to grow that, it just. And then if there's a farmer down the block that just grows all green onions, what's the point of me growing? I want to buy the green onions from him, and maybe I look at. But that's what they have to do. They have to look at the market and see like, because you know about that. But of course, but look at the market and see like, well, if they selling all green onions, maybe I need some purple ones because it don't make sense for us to be trying to.
Exactly. But yeah, that's another business related podcast, but you're absolutely correct. And that's why like I highly doubt that we're going to be neighbors in the future. Like I don't think we're aiming to live in the same regions of the country, but I know that I'm gonna pull up to Farmer 1K's house. He gonna have a dozen eggs ready. I'm like, yeah, like I came here just for these eggs. Like I'm about to have a really good omelet later.
Yeah, man. But yeah, bro, I think just that takeaway was just like, man, like that conversation is what you talking about, because I think the more we converse with expertise and not just some person on TikTok or just some person on, because it's a little different than just some person and like I study carrots, like I grow them all the time. It's a different type of knowledge that I think getting more diverse in our acceptance of knowledge is a key part to that too, so that we're like including all of these voices into the process.
Absolutely. I think that was a really good conversation. Want to transition now to the Cool Beans segment. And I think we talk about like spending money. We talk about budgeting for food versus growing food or buying the $1, $2, $7 cucumber, depending on where you shopping. And I want to shout out the homie Jada, who does Green Line Planner, another person that I interviewed on the Banquet Hall podcast. But Jada is really targeting, like specifically, she wants to do a lot of work with like young adult Black women and helping them budget their finances, just have a financial plan, helping them with their financial literacy. She has like different planners to help for folks with budgeting, but also once again, just a person who really like dove deep into her bag when it came to financial literacy and budgeting. And she has a lot of great knowledge. So definitely follow her on social media at Greenline Planner. Check out the website, greenlineplanner.com. and just see what's up there. Listen to, she has her own podcast that she had a few episodes for that she's starting back. But for any of y'all that are looking at getting more financially literate or just looking for a place to start, maybe you just got a new paycheck and trying to figure out how to budget your money properly, maybe you're trying to save up for something, I think it's dope to be able to point people to specific people who are really passionate about this stuff. And if y'all tune into that episode with her on the banquet hall, she really got very excited talking about how she helps people figure out their finances and how she really wants to get to know people, get to know their financial goals. And she gets excitement for helping people achieve those goals. So yeah, Cool Beans this week. I'm shouting out Green Line Planner, doing a lot of great work, and hopefully y'all can support that work. Y'all mute.
My bad. Guinea pigs are squeaking at me. But shout
Yeah,
out
I
to
heard
Green
him.
Line. Yeah, if y'all heard squeaks throughout the episode, my guinea pigs is upset and demanding. And that's what that was. But shout out to Green Line.
I feel like the people want the guinea pigs on the pod. They gotta do a guest appearance on the pod one of these days. It don't gotta be right now.
Yeah, because that's a whole nother convo about them. But basically, y'all, they is not as domesticated either.
But yeah, we're gonna have to FaceTime them in, have Moon be on the podcast real quick.
Yeah, for sure. We gotta definitely get Moon on the podcast.
He and has the most to say. Moon has the most to say?
Yeah. He's the one squeaking. It's not Ziggy. So when you hear the squeaks, it's just Moon. Like Ziggy kind of comes in a little bit in the middle of the process, but the one who's leading the charge is definitely Moon, for sure. For sure, every time.
Andre 1K is unfair.
Put the vegetables in there. I feed them, I promise, every single day. I feel like they just never go eat again.
Gotta love Moon and Ziggy. But that wraps up episode 13 of Natural Nonsense Podcast. I think we got a lot of good information in this episode. It's good to be back. We're going to get back on track with the episodes. We got a lot of great content for y'all coming up in the future. As mentioned, please send us some voice memos. I think that's one of my favorite parts of the podcast, just hearing what y'all have to say. Maybe you have some guinea pigs at home and you want to talk about them squeaking, whatever it is. Like literally the voice memo don't even got to be related to nothing that we talking about. If you just want to get up here for a minute and talk about why carrots are the most underrated vegetables of all time, let's hear it. I am all here for it.
For sure. Because that's what brings in the flow and the vibe is the input from the listeners. You know what I'm saying? So we want to hear what y'all think is nonsense about nature too. But some of it's natural.
Some of it is natural. Let's do it. So follow us on social media at Nat Nonsense Pod. Send us DMs, text us, whatever you want to do to get your takes out there, or whatever you want to hear on the podcast. As Andre mentioned, the domestication of big ass animals. The homie from high school, Lisa, shout out to Lisa. She just tweeted that. She's like, hey, I want to hear y'all talk about the domestication of big ass animals. And here we are, hour and some change later.
There you go.
As always, make sure y'all like, subscribe. Our audio listeners, if y'all are missing out on the video podcast, make sure y'all tune into Spotify or YouTube. But please, wherever y'all are listening, leave us a 5-star rating, leave us some thumbs up, some hearts, whatever you got to do. Comment, share, save, like the post. But most importantly, share it with a friend who listens to podcasts. Get them on the Natural Nonsense team. And we will catch y'all next episode. I hope y'all have a beautiful rest of your week, wherever y'all are listening, however y'all are listening. And we'll tap in next time.